Hello, dear friends. How are you doing today? Saturday, May the 18th. How are you doing today? I thought I'd make another video. I made one yesterday. Yesterday, I talked about Ivan Raiklan, Raiklin, Ivan Raiklan. And I think that yesterday was essentially the announcement or the birth of in a metaphorical sense, of the birth of a civil war within the United States power structure. And I have to be very careful that I don't talk about actual war, as in, kinetic conflict. No, I'm talking more about a ideological civil war that has been announced as of yesterday, and it pits the forces of truth and righteousness against the forces of corruption and deception. I don't want to use the term deep state. I don't like that term and all the baggage that is associated with that. And I'm not talking about Republicans versus Democrats. I'm talking about the people that want to stand for truth, righteousness, diligence, and honesty in governmental affairs, political affairs, corporate affairs, all levels of social interaction, if you want to call it that, whether it's on a personal level to government level to corporate level and so on and so forth. So there's a side that wants to be upright, forthright, honest, and there's a side that wants to be nefarious, underhanded, deceptive, and essentially steal whatever they can get their hands on. And these two forces are in battle. And it's becoming more vivid over time. I think it's something that extends at the highest levels and also at the personal level. We as individuals battle against influences that want us to cut corners. There's always a temptation to in any of the smallest circumstances. Yesterday, I was I was picking up a few groceries, and after I had gone through the checkout and I was putting my groceries from the cart into some carry-on bags, I noticed I had a can of beans, Heinz deep brown baked beans with pork and molasses. I think that cost me $1.99. And I said to the cashier, "Oh, I missed this. It was tucked in the corner of the cart, and I didn't see it when I loaded all my stuff onto the conveyor." And I asked the checkout girl, "Oh, I missed this can. Could you please scan this through for me?" And she went ahead and scanned it through for me, and I paid that separately and went on my merry way. Now, I don't know if in that brief moment I might have just said, "Oh, forget it. I'll just take my stuff out." I was already halfway away from the checkout and just continued on, and either justified it by saying, "Well, I'll pay it next time," or I'll not a big deal. But no, this is the individual battle that says, "No, I need to do the right thing at every opportunity." It was an honest mistake. I just didn't see it. It was at like the front of the cart, and I had the bag over the top, so it was in the back, and obviously my line of sight just didn't catch it for whatever reason. But thank God. If I had been lazy in thought or lazy in the zealousness towards integrity, I would have just blown it off and said, they make enough money. You can justify anything when you aren't diligent towards fighting for truth and righteousness at every opportunity. So thank God I wasn't lazy that day. I was on the ball, and I made sure I took care of it. And I don't say that to toot my own horn, but just to give an example that on an individual basis, we are in a civil war. We are constantly in battle to do the right thing, to do what is good, to know when to stand up. Pardon me. Oh, I'm losing my voice. To know when to speak out, when to stay silent. As Solomon said, there's a time and a place for everything. You have to try and discern, and life is a continual struggle to discern when you should do the right thing and when you should stand up and do something. We had an announcement, at least according to the messages on social media, that CSIS, that is the Canadian security intelligence service. It's an arm of the Canadian government that is involved in. It's like the Canadian version of the CIA or FBI, or all rolled into one, whatever you want to call it. The Canadian version of spooks that keep track of security, right? They mentioned that there's a violent threat posed by the anti-gender movement, and there's other quotes that were taken out. I don't know if they're taken out of context, but this is what's coming out. And so it's safe to say that the Canadian political infrastructure is totally on the side of the forces of evil, right? And the forces that want to promote what is good, what is righteous and proper, they are currently not in a position of power. So what happens in the United States, I think, will precipitate what happens in Canada. Our election will be in late 2025. The U.S. election is in November of 2024, coming up this year. And so that will dictate essentially what happens in Canada. I believe that if the Democrats win, then you will see the Liberals win again. And if the Republicans win, you'll likely see the Conservatives win in Canada, is my guess. And just talking about these different battles, I'll mention a couple of things. One is that there was this commencement speeches that were advertised. One was conducted by Harrison Butker, and he did a commencement speech. He's a famous football player for the Kansas City Chiefs, but it doesn't matter who he is. And he said in his commencement speech, encouraging the new graduates to get married, start a family, have good values, and the media went after him and said, oh, he said horrible things because he didn't promote the LGBTQ plus agenda, and he was his conservatism was too old-fashioned, they said, so on and so forth. And then there was Travis Kelce. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right, Kelce or Kelce. He's also a football player. He did this fake commencement speech. It wasn't. I don't think it was a real commencement speech, but it was in a stadium, and he was joking around, and he chugged the beer and said, you got to fight for your right to party, and they thought that was funny and hilarious and great and all that kind of stuff. So you see the dichotomy between good versus evil, that the delineation between these two forces are becoming a lot more vivid and easier to see. We know that in Revelation we hear how the end times, and that colors a lot of people's perception about what we can and cannot do. Some people look at it very fatalistically and say, well, the end times are coming and God's going to come back and straighten everything out, and there's not much we can do. But I cannot help to think that the prayer that we were taught from our Savior in John, to ask God's kingdom to come, that we ask His will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. Perhaps these messages from Revelation are a warning to us, and that those things will occur in the spirit realm, but as far as what occurs on earth, it gives us enough information to allow God's kingdom to come, to allow truth to prevail, to allow Him to return in the way that He sees is the most efficient, the most effective. So we've seen examples of good versus evil in the Bible in many different instances. Sodom and Gomorrah, and Lot, and these various battles, and very often it's represents, whether it's allegory or actual historical fact, it doesn't matter. It represents the battle between good versus evil. And I think that we're seeing that expand rapidly, so that it's going to extend down to an individual level. I believe that individuals, such as this Ivan Raiklan character, will have more and more responsibility, and that will be cemented and strengthened by the overwhelming and I don't know how to describe it. It will, the power of the individual has to increase. The only other option is chaos. If the individual, and it starts to make you think about digital IDs and things like that. The fact is that we already have digital IDs. Anybody that has a cell phone has a digital ID. Your ID is transmitted digitally, so the digital IDs already exist. But as the strength of the importance of your digital footprint within cyberspace increases, the the genuineness of the individual is going to become more and more important, because the ability to game the system will decrease. The opportunity for corruption will slowly lose its power. Currently, elections can just be dictated by the nefarious characters behind the scenes that are pulling the levers, right? The one who counts the votes is the one who wins, and the one who controls those numbers and those tallies, if you want to call it that. Whereas in the future, your individual identity will be directly tied to a vote that will be incorruptible. Now, that may take 1 year, it may take 10 years or 100 years, but the reality of your digital self, whether it's an avatar or if it's your actual personal identity, will be what dictates policy. It has to reach that level somehow, because the only alternative is chaos and complete corruption and collapse of civilization. And that's highly unlikely to happen with the advances in technology that we're seeing today. I just read a quote from Jason Lowry, and maybe I'll mention it here as well. I don't know if it's that relevant for anybody that's listening here. He says, almost all at once, people, this is Jason Lowry speaking, he's a MIT astrophysicist, US military guy, Space Force guy. Almost all at once, people and nations alike will realize that to keep something secure in cyberspace, they'll need to wield digital power, and there's already a globally adopted standard for wielding digital power, which I believe is encrypted, encrypted information. And as encrypted information increases in importance and is tied to the individual, this is what will allow for righteousness to prevail. Because anybody that's trying to game the system, anybody that's trying to be corrupt, anybody that's trying to say that, and it'll extend out, because anybody that's trying to say that evil is good and good is evil will be shut down. It will not prevail. Or if those groups or forces or individuals decide to choose that route and say, oh, it's better to steal, it's better to cut corners, it's better to do this, they will lose their power, they will lose their influence, they will lose. And it's, in some ways, it is an extrapolation of the social credit system in China, if you want to call it that, but it won't be something as scary as that. It will be something that is sensible and valid and based on a fair protocol. If it is a totalitarian protocol that is dictated from a central authority, then that will fail. It has to fail. Whereas if it is a organic, ground up protocol that is accepted and adopted by the mass of humanity, then there is hope for a peaceful revolution, if you want to call it that. And I know a lot of what I'm talking about is a little bit murky, but I think those things will become more clear over time as we see technology develop in our lifetime. And those things will become clearer and clearer as we move forward into the future. So I don't know if much of that makes sense, but these are some thoughts that I've been pondering about, and I just thought I would get them out to put them on video so that I can come back later and see how things have changed over time. It'd be interesting to see, especially the results of the election in 2024 in the United States, and then consequentially the results of the election in Canada, approximately October of 2025. And so I think that'll really be a strong statement to what the next intermediate stage of Western history is going to look like the next, obviously the next 4-year cycle, if you want to call it that. So yeah, just thinking out loud, thought I'd share these thoughts with you. And if you have any feedback for me, I'd love to hear your thoughts and any comments that you have, and especially if you have any thoughts about this guy by the name of Ivan Raiklan, if you've heard of him. I think if you haven't, you'll probably be hearing a lot more about him in the very near future. Raiklin, I believe, is his last name. So yeah, God bless you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you're well. I hope you're able to spend time with people you love, and look forward to talking to you again soon. Hopefully I'll be able to make another video as time and energy permits, and that we'll talk to you real soon. Okay? I love you very much. God bless you. Talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.